Well, because somebody put a road through here one time and then they abandoned it. You know, they don't need roads anymore, so we're splitting the road in two. Looks like.
Yeah.
Good place to do it. Gives us a few extra acres of land.
Okay.
But
And
bit of a job.
show me what you've done over here.
Well, let's look at this. These two big posts we put in here. For those of you who don't know, you need to set up like this to keep the wire from pulling the posts over. So these two brace each other so that when we pull it tight, it won't pull it over.
All right.
These posts are made of hedge. I guess they last nearly forever. And then you got number 9 wire here that's connecting the bottom to the top because the screen is that way. And this steel pipe to help separate them, keep separation on them.
And I assume that you were so strong that you bent the pipe?
Well, yeah, that's how it happens, folks.
Okay. Be careful. Okay, we are videotaping here, and it's October 1995, and Grammy's here to tell us about a few things, including this doll. What's the story on this, Grammy?
Well, this doll has quite a story. Sister Gladys was 3 years older than I, and sometimes I got to be a big sister with her. And so for Christmas, when I was 7 years old, Mother and Daddy gave each of us a doll. These are very special dolls, and I didn't know how to take care of a doll then, and I had to see what made the eyes work, and I thought that their hair had to be washed, and I ruined that, and I used a curling iron on her hair and ruined her. So anyhow, she wasn't a very nice doll. I mean, I didn't take good care of her, but I never really played with her because her body was stiff, patent leather body, and saw filled with sawdust, and she was stiff. But anyhow, through the years, my sister Opal, 2.5 years younger than I, didn't have a doll, and she never did get a doll. And she always felt bad, and she always wondered why she didn't have a doll. Well, more we kids came along, and Grandma Carlson lived with us, and we had more babies come into our home, and dolls was just a little thing that we didn't need around then. So Mother had made her a black rag doll, and so she always slept with her little rag doll. Well, I never could sleep with my doll. But anyhow, Gladys and I really never played with the dolls too much. But years later then, when we went to Gladys's and Lester's 50th wedding anniversary, why Opal still said, I still don't know why I didn't get a doll. So as we were coming home from Great Bend that day, I told my family, LD and Joe, who was riding with us, I said, I'm going to give my doll to Sister Opal, which I did. And when I gave the doll to Opal, she was 69 years old. And when I gave it to her, she cried. She says, and put the doll to her shoulder. She says, I'm 69 years old and I have a doll of my own. So years later, a couple years later, then I told Sister Gladys about it, and she didn't even know Opal felt bad about not having a doll. And so she said, well, you know, I have a doll. You just want to have my doll. So she gave me her doll. Incidentally, my doll, after LD and Joe were married, why Joe saw real precious things about my doll, and so we took the doll to Wichita and had a new wig put on her and all, and got the eyes fixed, and they were permanent. But this doll, her eyes will go to shut. But anyhow, I went to Wichita and got this doll a new hair piece. This is material, the wedding dress that Gladys had, and I wore Gladys's wedding dress, so this was scraps of Gladys's wedding dress. And this is my doll. But anyhow, Opal asked me what my doll's name was, and I said, well, really, she was always just my doll, but really her name was Grace. because that was my middle name. So Joyce said, or Opal sent me a real precious letter after I got the doll, and I'm going to read it. Dear Wilma, this was written in July 1987. Only God can made a beautiful rose. Only God makes a sweet, beautiful sister like you, a treasure the deepest of thoughts in the gift of Grace from Wilma to Opal. I am going to write a story about Grace that will go with Grace. It will be very thoughtful. It is to be very thoughtful to where she goes next. Thank you, Wilma. There are not words to express my depth of feeling. I saw this card and I wanted you to have it. Maybe the rose will say it for me, and maybe each beautiful rose that you see will help me to say it. I love you, Wilma. May God be with you always, your sister Opal. And I wrote on that after that. I was feeling so bad, knew that my days were numbered. And I wrote this in January the 20th, 1990. So I gave this doll to Opal right after we moved into our new home on 320 Bridge Street, Humboldt, Kansas. This is a very precious thing in my life. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're over taking a look at some of Mama's jewelry.
When Sister Gladys and Lester were living at Prairie Homestead, we ate there in the cafeteria there, and in the area the people had things that they began to realize that they couldn't keep anymore. Money meant more to them. So they would either donate it to the home or they would sell things. And so every time I went there, Gladys would always like to take me over there, and I'd usually try buy something because it made Gladys feel good. And this piece of jewelry, it kind of hit me. And I said, you know, I'm going to buy that. And I did. And Gladys said, Wilma, that was given to me by sister-in-law, Margaret. But she says, I really had no place to wear it. And so I bought it. So this is jewelry that Sister Gladys wore. Oh, Joyce and her family gave me this little pin here. This little skirt, LD and Joe, big skirt, they gave me for Christmas this year, plus a blouse. Okay, now LD wants me to tell some things about here. These are precious to me, maybe not to anybody else. This is a cross chain that LD and Joe gave me after LD had been to, I think it was Egypt, wasn't it?
Ethiopia.
Ethiopia. This is a cameo that we bought when we went to Egypt. We got it in Italy. And Daddy wanted to know if I wanted it was for our 38th wedding anniversary. And he wanted to know if I wanted a locket or a pin. Well, I was surprised. I didn't know what I wanted. So I got it, so that's a locket or a pin, either way. Okay, here's the little gold cross that Joyce and Byron gave me one time. Here's a little crystal necklace that when Joyce graduated from the high school, she had a crystal necklace and a bracelet. And she didn't wear it and she left it here. So Grammy put the bracelet and the necklace together, and I wore this at our 50th wedding anniversary. Here is a little piece of jewelry here. Grandmother Carlson, my grandmother, had 6 sterling spoons, and they had a C on them. And so it was divided up, and I happened to have one. And I would use it once in a while. Sterling silver was so soft it would break. And so I had it with things, and Sister Gladys came to visit us one time, and I was showing it to her. She says, well, we have a friend at Great Bend that likes to work on sterling silver. So I said, well, take it back then and see if he can make a little necklace out of it. So this was the little necklace. He put it on the silver chain, and he kept the spoon part, and I had the handle. So maybe I was smart or wise, I don't know, but anyhow, I couldn't wear the spoon, but I can that. And this is one of these mood necklaces that I think I got out there at Gladys's shop there too. It's supposed to show there at one time if you got, I don't know, if you're in a certain mood, it'd turn a different color, and it will turn different colors. Anyhow, I guess I just bought it. This is a little locket that Daddy gave me for Christmas one year, and I carried our little pictures in it. That's us. And this is a chartreuse.
Cartouche.
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 They say it's my name in Egypt. Always wore no hieroglyphics, but I didn't know. I couldn't read it, but I wear it. And this is an opal that Gramps got me when he went to. Well, he got it on one of the islands. I don't know which one it was. And this is a necklace that was Gladys wore, and I wear that a lot that the family gave me. That's just a few of the things that I've got a whole bunch of things in here. I don't throw anything away. It's just Grandmother Solomon and just, you know, it's just a lot of stuff. Here's a necklace that Daddy bought when he went to Africa. But I don't know, I just never found a proper place to wear it. And here's a little Florence Miller, Gramps' neighbor that were born the same day, Florence Miller. And she gave this for our wedding anniversary one year. And here's just some of our pictures that we have.
Okay. Now let's see if we can go over here and take a look at this picture on the wall. Okay, we're taking a look at a picture on the wall, and as I recall, this is something that Les and Joe gave to you, and when was that and why?
It would have been the year that you started to graduate school in Massachusetts.
August the 29th, 1970.
And we had taken a Kodak picture of this home, which was our honeymoon cottage. We moved there the second week of May in 1941.
Hang on just a second, Mom. I'm looking at that. Turn it around again.
Oh.
Okay. Go ahead.
And we lived there until December of that year, moved across the road, but continued to rent that farm for 2 more years.
As
We
I
called it our honeymoon cottage. I had never, my folks built a new home when I was 2.5 years old. I'd never lived in anything but a new house. And when we came to look at it, this part was stone. This doesn't show stone, but it was. We had a little old potbelly stove here. And there was a hallway between this room and the bedroom. And before we moved there, a man was a bootlegger. And in our living room on the floor, you lift up the floor, and there you could hide bottles of whiskey. And upstairs is the same thing. So when anybody would come, why, they could search the house, but they wouldn't think to look under the floor. But we didn't have electricity, so we left a light at night. And different times people would come up and honk. They wanted their bootleg. Well, we didn't have it. Well, we didn't know why they kept bothering us. So Arthur's cousin told us, don't leave your light. That's a signal that you've got liquor for them. But the night we were chivalry, they rolled the barrel over here and flashed the lights all around, and we were sleeping back here in the bedroom. We tried to find our clothes, and we ran up here, and we're dressing up here. And they were flashing the lights. And time we got down to the living room, they'd taken the screen off, and they were all sitting in our living room.
Now, a lot of people that we know don't know what a chivalry is. Briefly, what is a chivalry?
It's a serenade to newlyweds. They will come and make a lot of noise, and it's a trick to try to get away from them, and then you are expected to treat them before they go. It is a form of trick-or-treat.
I thought it was a form of social acceptance of the wedding.
Whatever.
Oh.
I never saw much social about it.
Okay, here it says the lady that printed it, the kids took this picture. We took it 30 years after we lived in this house. We came back, it was empty. And I said, oh, let's take a picture of that house. So we did. And here's the picture. And so LD and Joe, when we were on vacation, they were staying at our house, and they dug this picture out and gave it to a lady that worked at the office that worked for Arthur. And she painted this. She's never had any training in painting, but she painted it. It was treasured to us. But shortly after that, this is what she wrote on it. I remember the house where love was born. And then down below, I've got a clipping, honeymoon places, ages, too. And then look to people, not things, if you move. Those are just some, and then I have our wedding announcement here in the paper. But anyhow, that's our honeymoon cottage. It's gone now, but we always think about it and think of all the fun things that we had there when we first married.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, no, the main bed don't show, does it?
No.
Okay, this is a plaque that I made for Daddy. Our 15th wedding anniversary. We got new rings that year. I had worn mine out milking cows. God bless our home. This little motto picture over here was a special hang here on the birds over here. Was a special friend that we lived in our apartments, and she wanted me to have it.
Story of this.
Before I was born, my parents lost 2 little girls. And before I was born, our pastor's wife made this beautiful little dress to give to my parents when I was born. This dress was worn by my brothers. It has been used on different occasions for grandchildren's pictures, and has been preserved now for almost 80 years.
See, I think it was worn by both Alice and Shannon and Harrison,
Okay.
I believe.
Yes. Most recently, this was worn by our great-grandson, Harrison, but I remember one time, especially when our first granddaughter Shannon was a baby, that she wore this and was the baby Jesus in the manger scene at LD and Joe's church Christmas program.
Wichita.
In Wichita. Okay. Okay.
Now start.
Here is my going away hat when we were married in 1941, and here's my purse I carried. Couldn't carry much in it. It don't answer the purpose anymore.
It was big enough for what we had.
Okay, now let's come over here to this.
This is a special baby quilt after we had lost our little Evelyn Winnell. Betty Rose Peterson was a very dear friend of ours, and she made this quilt. And so when LD was born, she gave it to us, and so both of the kids used, so the grandchildren have used it. I've tried to take good care of it. There's a lot of special things in there, the little Mother Goose rhymes. And Brother Melvin made this little coat hanger for me.
Okay.
This is a chair that used to be Uncle Albert Solomon's. And I tried to redo it and refinish it, and then we had a cane bottom put into it. And we just got it refixed about 3 years ago, I guess it was. Paid $30 to get this little seat in, but it's a real solid chair. Uncle Albert lived to how old?
97 and a half.
97 and a half, and that's been when LD and Joyce weren't very big kids.
He died in 1962.
1962.
Okay, who do we have over here on the wall? We'll just take care of this top
This
one.
is my, oh, you tell this one.
This is Grandpa and Grandma Carlson, Olga and Arthur Carlson, their wedding picture. And they were married in their mother's rural home down by Vilas, Kansas. And they always said that my mother was the most beautiful girl down around Vilas.
They were married on February 22nd, 1911.
Okay.
This is the pictures that Reverend Miss Polly gave us when we were married. They had been our pastor for 9 years. It is hung in our home all through our married life. Keep Christ in your home. This is a very special thing to me. This was Grandpa Carlson's, and a friend of his made the violin out of an old trunk. What kind of wood it is, I don't know. If it were refinished, which maybe I should do, but it was very beautiful. But Daddy played by ear, and he bored a lot of people with it, but anyhow, he played it. And Sister Gladys took a lot of violin lessons on it. And so when I came along, freshman in high school, well, we've got a violin in the family, you take violin. I took 7 lessons, and my little brothers and sisters said, well, if I couldn't play any better, I wouldn't play. I didn't play. So, but it's real treasures. I can seesaw, but my arms and my eyes don't always get it work.
Take the thing off the top
Okay.
there.
This is a old copper washboarder. Years ago, at the Center Ridge Church where we went to church, they made coffee in it. They would take a 10-pound sugar bag, which came in cloth bags at that time, and put the coffee in it, and they would boil it, and they'd poke that bag of coffee down there, and then at sales, they would sell the coffee, and they would sandwiches and pie. But anyhow, with the Ridge Church, when they closed the church, I wanted it. I tried to buy it earlier, and they wouldn't sell it. They said, no, we just sell the treasures in it. And so when they closed the church, why, I said, well, they came to me, wanted to know if I'd like to buy it. I said, yes. They said, well, it's the most expensive thing in the church. I said, okay, tell me what you want. They said, you have to have it $30. That's what it was valued at. I said,
35.
fine. 35. And so we bought it. And we keep our pictures in it. This is a picture of the man I married. He had hair. Here's his curls down here. Isn't he a cute guy?
Okay, first of all, tell me a bit about this table that we're sitting at.
This table is very special to me. When we moved to Chanute and built a new house, Daddy says, you go down to Cause and buy any kind of dining room suite you want. I said, no, I want this old table and chairs. He said, it's old, you don't want that. Well, the way we got this, some friends of ours, their house burned, and we were shopping at Christmas time, and we were keeping 2 of their children. And I was in the penny store, and this lady says, aren't you going to buy anything for these other kids? I said, well, we're just buying some clothes for our kids. But their house burned. She says, well, do they have a dining room set? And I said, I don't know. Well, she says, my husband has inherited his mother's dining room set. So we have this round oak table and chairs and buffet that we'd like to sell. So I asked the family if they had any living room furniture. Yeah, they did have, and they didn't need dining room set. So I told Arthur, I said, let's go down and buy it. So we paid $25 for the table, 6 chairs, and a buffet. And so when we moved to Chanute, then Daddy says, you don't move this old thing down in your house. We're going to have new. I said, I'll refinish it. He said, you won't get it done. I said, I will. I didn't know anything about refinishing. So we moved it down there in the basement, and I took the sandpaper they used to sand the floors and sanded all the old varnish off of everything. And I didn't know anything about varnish, so I just used the varnish that they use. This is called spar varnish, and I varnished the table and chairs. This was in 1956, I think it was. But anyhow, we've had it ever since, and we have learned to love it. We've got a special spot here. We had a son by the name of Wilma Solomon, and he was making a radio one time, and his electric soldering iron branded it, so that's very special to me too. But anyhow, we had to, some of the chairs got kind of rickety, so we had 2 chairs made into 4 chairs, I guess those are 5 chairs. But anyhow, we're still sitting on them. Okay, some things are sitting here. Daddy and I were married in 1941. And this Uncle Leslie Brown gave us this cake plate. I think it cost about $10 then. It was very special. We had a lot of birthday cakes on it. And it could be turned over and made into a centerpiece. Put a bouquet of flowers up here and full of flowers around here. And I remember one time my cousin Florence came to see us, and she says, "Oh, that's a bride, how she's fixed things." Okay, before we were married, we went to Chanute one Saturday night and bought a set of dishes. And the head special, and this is a set that we picked out because it didn't cost very much money. But if you bought a set of dishes, you could get a dozen goblets or a dozen sherbets. And so we tried to be practical. We got 6 of each. So that was our set of dishes we started out. When I graduated from high school, the folks were hard up, and I didn't get a wristwatch. Sister Gladys got a wristwatch. So they gave me the money, and I used the money to help to go to college. So when I got married then, so I bought a sport watch when I was teaching school. And so I bought this set of dishes. This was my watch that I graduated from high school. There's several things here. This, Arthur's mother and father, this is one of their wedding presents. And this was a little short salt cellar that belonged to Grandpa Brown, and on the bottom it says, Grandpa Solomon wrote it, sheep herder, 1885. So the sheep herder must have given it to him. I think that was it. Mother gave me this special. She says, I had never asked anything out of her china closet. Gladys and Opal both said what they wanted. And so she's asked me what I wanted. I said, you tell me, you give me something. She says, I want you to have this. This is crystal. And if you snap it, it rains. It's a beautiful dish. This is a berry bowl that Grandma Carlson got for their wedding present. There were 6 of these bowls and a big bowl. It was customary then that when you had company, you put the fruit in a big bowl and everybody served themselves. This was another. There's 6 of these. This is beautiful. And this is one of the wedding presents. And this was Grandmother Solomon. I don't know if somebody gave them to her, she bought them or what, but this is really Haviland china. And there were 6 of these plates, or 5 of them. So I have written on the back of them each of the grandchildren's name. This plate says Peter. So I hope that they will treasure those when I'm through with them. This is one of Mother and Daddy's wedding presents. We used it all the time when we had thrashers, silo man, and I can't imagine how it didn't get broken, but at that time we didn't have ice to put in the glasses. Maybe that's what saved it. This is a goblet that belongs to the family. This is genuine lead crystal, and Arthur's uncle Albert Solomon had it, and it has the Solomon, what do we call that?
Insignia.
Insignia. Well, it's more than a insignia.
Coat of arms.
But anyhow, this was when Uncle Albert's son, anyhow, he said that we just got so much we don't want any more of it, and gave it to us, which we treasure. Okay, I think this is, and this, when we were married, we went to Colorado on our honeymoon, and went to Grandma Brown's, and so she told Arthur, says, you go to the china closet and get anything out of there you want. And he picked a little carnival dish, and we always used it for jelly when we had company, because he said he remembered going to Grandma's house with it. But when we moved, we lived out at Greensburg, we moved out to the country. I moved a lot of the treasured things out that I didn't use and stored in the cupboard. When we got there, my little dish was gone. And I hated it so bad, Grandmother Solomon gave this, Arthur's mother gave this dish to us. Arthur, here's a special, and this was one of Mother and Daddy's wedding presents. It matches the Orfors that Arthur and I bought in Sweden when we were there. So I just say that's part of the set. Okay, Arthur, you want to come and tell about
Why don't we go over to the
here's the bottle.
go over to the piano, we'll take a look at those orphores and see if there's
Okay.
anything else over there first.
Okay, we're going over here at the piano. When we were in Sweden, we went to where they hand blew these things. These are heavy, and it was very, very precious, interesting to watch how they blew the. I can't say
The
it.
name of it is the Orfors Glassworks.
Glassworks. Up here is a plaque that I treasure. It's not all that valuable, but after visiting in Sweden in my grandparents' house that we visited years ago, about 9-10 years ago, and this is the way I visualize that my grandparents lived over in Sweden. They had the spinning wheel, they had the fireplace, and all of these things that have a special meaning to me. And years ago when we lived at Howard, I saw this in Wichita in the furniture store, and I said, I must have it. So, Daddy bought it for me. Okay.
Okay, let's go take a look at this. What's this, Dad?
This is a bottle that my uncle Will Morse made. Inside the bottle is the Woodman's emblems. But the interesting thing about it is that he handmade every piece in this bottle and assembled it through the top and put it together. This bottle was made in 1911, and he gave bottle to different members of the family. So in later years, Brother Gene got the one my parents had. I purchased this from the Grand Avenue Church after they purchased Uncle Albert Solomon's house, and it was found in there. I purchased it from the church. And then Dean Summers, who was a nephew of Aunt Lizzie Solomon's, gave his bottle like this to Virgil. So we three brothers each had one of these special bottles.
Oh, isn't it true that this was found in a trash pile? You know, we almost lost it.
This, it wasn't exactly lost in a trash pile. What it was, as they remodeled the church, they took one room at a time. And they took everything out of the room, laid it out in the yard. People at church took what they wanted. Florence Larson saw this bottle. She says, here's something special that means something to someone. I know not who. I'll take it home and keep it till we find out. So it just by accident we found it.
Okay. Okay. What do we have here?
This is a little mallet made out of walnut from lumber in the old German Evangelical Church, which is in the east edge of Humboldt on Bridge Street. This church was spared during Civil War days when the town of Humboldt was burned. And the reason for the burning was there was ammunition stored somewhere, and the guerrillas came over from across the Missouri border, couldn't find it, so they just kept burning buildings. They didn't find the ammunition, but it was stored in this little church. In the mid-1920s, some remodeling was done in the church. Our pastor was real handy with woodworking, so he took some of the walnut lumber and made some of these gavels for the trustees of the three churches of the Humboldt Mission. At that time, my father was one of the trustees and got one of the mallets. The other thing I have here is a spoon that was made out of 2 silver dollars. This was handed down from my mother's great-grandmother's family, the Ware family. And it has very special meaning because it is a handmade spoon.
It has initials on it too.
Yes, it has the Ware name on it, which was Grandmother Brown's through her parents' car.
Okay, what do we have?
Okay, and looking through things, I found this. When I was in grade school, we had to use the pen and ink. We had an ink well on our desk, and ink was the messiest stuff. And we'd always get ink on our clothes, and that ink, they didn't have washable ink in those days. So Mother always would take a piece of felt and made a little kitty. So we had that, and we would take our pens and wipe on that. This was made of wool, so it would absorb. And then she always saw to it that we had our little kitty for our pen. This is a hat comb that my grandmother used to wear. They wore a knot, and they'd stick it in a knot in their hair, and that's what kept their hair in place. And then if they needed to comb their hair, they just pull it out and comb their hair back. This, when we went to Sweden, my mother's first cousin over there, he was real short. He was an Alderman. And he would talk to me, and he couldn't talk American. And his family would tell him, says, now, Grandpa, she can't understand. And he'd forget, and he'd start. But anyhow, he had a hobby of making things out of copper. And after we came home, he sent this to me. This is real heavy. So I thought it was real handy to dip soup, so I wrote and told him that how we enjoyed it. And I immediately got a letter back that it was not to be used. It was to be an ornament. And out in the utility room, we have one, just a little bowl-like that my grandmother used to use, and they would melt skunk grease or goose grease or something they'd put it on the stove to melt it, and then they'd put that on their boots to make their waterproof. Okay, I guess that's what I have here.
Okay.
This is a table that Daddy and I bought with money that I think it was Virgil and his dad gave us.
Grandpa Solomon and Jean.
And we bought this as a table. And when we lived at Greensburg, why, it looked kind of bad looking, and Joyce wanted to get rid of it. I said, no. I said, that's part of our wedding present. I don't want to part with it. So, again, I varnished it, and it served us for a long time. Here's something down here that don't mean anything to anybody else, but when we were in Hawaii, Daddy always said we're going to have Hawaii for 25th wedding anniversary, and I just laugh and laugh. But believe it or not, our 25th, we were in Hawaii. And we were out on one of the beaches in Maui, and I was out there walking on the sand, and I picked up this piece of driftwood, and I put it under my arm, and I said, this is going to go home with me. Daddy said, you can't take it. I said, I will. And so I stuck it in a suitcase, and we were going through customs. They reached in. I don't know if they thought I had a human arm or what I had, but anyhow. When we came home, it was completely soaked with salt. Oh, I just soaked and soaked and soaked to get the salt out. And these are little worms that friends of mine gave us for our 25th wedding anniversary. So this is I like logs, something different.
Okay.
Brother Melvin, years ago when he was in high school, Mother had a not electric, but a gasoline motor sewing machine, or washing machine. And of course that was kind of new at that time. But anyhow, he decided that he would make a little lathe. And he took hedge, that was the only thing he had there at home to work on. And he made this little container. And I don't know if you can see all the little holes he used to try to center. This is what we keep our checkers in. And then he made the cross and the candlesticks, which has been a part of our home for a long time. I treasure it. This also was made of hedge. It was made by Melvin, and I just had on Uncle Melvin made this. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
LD and Joe and family, and Joyce and Byron and family gave this leaded glass to Gramps and I for our 50th wedding anniversary. We love that very much. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
This is an old-fashioned coffee grinder that when I used to go to grandmother's house, in the morning you could hear her down there. It had a little drawer here. Our coffee always came in a seed, and so she would grind it. You could hear her grind it. But this friend of ours moved to town and I had taken her to different places through the years, Mrs. Milholland. And after she moved down, she says, "Wilma, go down in the house and have anything you want." And I saw this and I just picked it up. I'm sure the drawer was there too, but I did pick it up. This is a little birthday book that Grandmother Solomon gave us when Joyce was a baby. We have filled it through the years. There's lots of people's birthdays in there. And there's sometimes that I put the places of their name and then their death. But I always tell them to write the year that they're born, but I don't want their age. But it's been very interesting through the years. We'll have to put Pauline's death in here now.
Okay.
When Grandma Carlson, or Grandma Anderson, when I used to go to their home, in their bedroom, there were 4 big frames like this, and there were pictures on them. And at that time, I didn't realize how valuable it was, and I didn't even ask who they were. And I'm sorry, I don't know. I know my Grandpa Anderson's picture was on one. But anyhow, they were found in the barn down at where Grandma's used to live. And my mother saw things and treasured things, so she picked up 4 of them. None of them wanted them. And so I got this one, and I tried to refinish it and antique it. And so here is the mirror. And I fixed one for Grandma Carlson, and I gave it to them. I think LD has it now. Sister Gladys had one. I don't know what happened to it. What happened to the 4th one, I have no idea.
I think Rick has it.
Has he? But
And
anyhow,
behind ours, there's one of the portraits. I think behind this one, you lost the portrait. Is that correct?
well, one was Grandpa Anderson. And we were in the process of moving all the time. I couldn't keep tab. I should have kept it in here, but I didn't.
Okay, I think it's the picture, individual picture from their wedding
Was it?
portrait. Okay, let's go down here to the bell.
Okay. I have always had a loving for bells. The first year I taught school, I had a bell. No, the second year, I had a bell like this. And always treasured thinking of bells. And one time I said that a friend was riding with us to Kansas City, that her husband was in the hospital. And we were going up when Grandpa Solomon was in the hospital up there. But anyhow, I made a remark, I wish I had one of these handbells. And one day she came to church and gave it to me, and she had a rack in her cracker box. And this is my bell. It has rats have chewed on the handle. It's old, but I treasure it.
Okay.
Here's a picture of all of our grandchildren just left to sleep with this nightlight on, with the cattle.
And you said Uncle Melvin made the table?
Uncle Melvin made this table when he was in high school, and he wanted to share it and gave it to us. This is a weaving basket that I made when I was in college. This is a little deal with raffia that Brother Melvin made, and I had taught him how to do it. I learned how to do this in college.
Okay.
This old clock has been in the Solomon family for more than 100 years. And it originally was purchased because I had an aunt that was partially blind and couldn't see the time on the clock, and she could hear the striking. Then when my grandmother Solomon died, my parents got the clock. It was in our home from the time I was 7 years old until we were married. Later, my father he did not give this clock, he loaned it to a woman here in Humboldt, and we thought it was gone. And Wilma asked one time if he had any idea where it was, and he says, well, yes. And he told her where it was, and she said, well, can we go buy it? He said, I didn't give it to her, I just let her use it. So he went and got this clock, and we've had it in our home ever since. My father remembers when it was purchased. He thought he was about 10 years old and if he were living, he would be 112 years old this year.
We have here.
This is the china closet that Sister Gladys bought when they were married in 1936. And shortly after they were married, they moved up to Richmond, Kansas. And then they were there a couple of years, and then they moved to Greensboro, to Great Bend. And he didn't have U-Hauls and all those things, and so Arthur was trekking. And so one day at church, Gladys says, "Why don't you see if Arthur can haul it when he hauls hay or hedge posts out there sometimes?" She had a bedroom suit also, and it was stored upstairs in the north room out there where Melvin's lived. But anyhow, I go to church and I tell Arthur, I told him what Gladys wanted. And some Sundays he'd come to me and he says, "Well, maybe I'll be by and pick up that china closet bedroom suit." Went on and went on and went on. He never did get it moved. So before we got married, we bought the bedroom suit and this china closet. So this has got our courtship together. Maybe we've known each other all our lives, but maybe it took a china closet to get us together, I guess.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
This is Grandpa and Grandma Carlson's wedding present. Their folks, mother's folks gave it to them. It cost $20. And it was all through the years that they had it. When they moved to Chanute, they laid it down on the back and the back of the trailer. Mother was so careful about it. Daddy lost his balance and stepped through and broke this glass. And she really cried, but anyhow, she could get the glass fixed. But anyhow, when we decided, after Mother and Daddy were gone, they said, "Well, all of us live away from here, and we move, and so we'll let Wilma have the china closet." Wilma and Arthur got the china closet, and we moved more than any of them did. But whenever we moved, I filled it full of pillows, and we moved it all these different times, and we still have the china closet. We've enjoyed it. It's very fragile. It isn't a real solid one like a lot of people's time. But it served a purpose for us, and we love it. When we built this house, I planned it, that this would have a little secret place here, kind of protected. Because as long as I remember, this glass down here was cracked when I used to sit on the floor playing with the blocks and toys. I remember that glass, how it got broken. I don't think I did it, but anyhow, I remember it all through the years. Okay?
Okay.
The day after we were married, we were on the way to Colorado for a honeymoon. We stopped in western Kansas to purchase gasoline. While I was getting the gasoline, Wilma went in and to the station and saw this little motto, purchased it for a nickel. We have kept this motto, or a copy of it, in our kitchen for our entire married life. It is our custom on Sunday morning to pray the Lord's Prayer and then say this motto. And it goes as follows: our ship
To say,
laying out,
to see,
the ship
the care,
is you,
and me.
Omei,
We skim
each roll,
and crest,
and safe,
the end,
I have,
and blessed,
and when
win,
this hap,
be trip,
I love,
still guide,
last my.
to ship.
It is our ship is sailing out to sea, the ship that carries you and me. Oh, may we skim each rolling crest and safely end by heaven blessed. And when we end this happy trip, may love still guide life's magic ship.
Pre-arranged time and at a pre-arranged location during survey period. Make sure you get to